Okay, so what do you get when you cross an Abraham Lincoln, a John Brown's body, and a Moby Dick? You get the 1850s, my friend. Hey friends, Harry here. We finally made it to the 1850s. So, a lot of conflict in this decade. But some new innovations as well. So, let's get started. Founder of the New York Times, Henry J. Raymond, produces his first news spreadsheet, what we know today as a newspaper, in September of 1851. This is his new business now, feeding news to the area and to the country, and he plans to do it every single day for infinite years to come, with the exception for Sunday. Ha! On November 14th, 1851, Herman Melville publishes his novel, Moby Dick. It becomes an instant classic. The novel is also simply known as The Whale. Pretty scary, huh? A little after Independence Day of 1852, Frederick Douglass delivers a powerful speech that catapults anti-slavery forward and eventually helps to bring forth that great day of independence for the slavery. Here are some Wikipedia highlights of that speech. What have I, or those I represent, to do with your national independence? Are the great principles of political freedom and of natural justice embodied in that Declaration of Independence extended to us? What to the American slave is your 4th of July? I answer, a day that reveals to him, more than all other days of the year, the gross injustice and cruelty which he is constant victim of. Of the black man, Frederick Douglass said this: they were statesmen, patriots, and heroes, and with them justice, liberty, and humanity were final, not slavery and oppression. They convert the very name of religion into an engine of tyranny and barbarous cruelty, and serve to confirm more infidels in this age than all the infidel writings of Thomas Paine, Voltaire, and Bolingbroke put together have done. You profess to believe that of one blood God made all nations of men to dwell on the face of the earth, and that hath commanded all men everywhere to love one another, yet you notoriously hate and glory in your hatred all men whose skins are not colored like your own. Fellow citizens, there is no matter in respect to which the people of the North have allowed themselves to be so ruinously imposed upon as that of the pro-slavery character of the Constitution. In that instrument, I hold there is neither warrant, license, nor sanction of the hateful thing, but interpreted as it ought to be interpreted, the Constitution is a glorious liberty document. Read its preamble, consider its purposes. Is slavery among them? Is it at the gateway, or is it in the temple? It is neither. cling to this day, cling to it and to its principles with the grasp of a storm-tossed mariner to a spar at midnight. At a time like this, scorching irony, not convincing argument is needed. It is not light that is needed, but fire. It is not a gentle shower, but thunder. We need the storm, the whirlwind, and the earthquake. Intelligence is penetrating the darkest corners of the globe. It makes its pathway over and under the sea, as well as on the earth. Surprisingly enough, Frederick Douglass was offered a standing ovation for this speech. It brought the awareness of the horrors of slavery to the American people. And slavery would one day be abolished because of the acts and speech of this very man. And now it is a time when the Russian Eastern Orthodox Church attempts to take over the rule of the Roman Catholic Church. From October of 1853 to February of 1856, we have the Crimean War. This is the war that is fought with two sides, and one side is standing pretty much alone. We have the United Kingdom, the Ottoman Empire, the French Legion, and Sardinia. They rise up against Russia. It is a religious war, if there is such a thing. It is for territory. This one has to do with the spread of the faith of church. Russia is trying to promote the Eastern Orthodox, and they are trying to overthrow the Catholic Church that has actually been around for 1,000+ years, about 1,800 years at this point. So it doesn't work out for Russia. The Catholic Church dominates and is continuing to be widespread, while Russia has protection for the Eastern Orthodox, still in alliance today with religious practices. Part of the Catholic Church, actually today, interesting war though. It was very barbaric. It was a lot of unnecessary killing in this war. But war is ugly, especially when it's a religious war.
Audio Jungle.
And the Catholic Church dominates the religious world up to even today. The Treaty of Kanagawa. Since the 17th century, Japan has been closed to the free world with its policy of privacy. This privacy was extensive to every aspect of their lives. Private lives, private secrets, whatever they do in their region is not known to anybody in the free world. Kind of like the way we know North Korea today, right? This has been for a long time, obviously. So now in the 1850s, America, we can't leave anybody alone. So we try to reason with them to open their borders so that we can trade with them. And they refuse on many, many levels. To the point where we are just pushy and pushy and pushy. So finally, we get them to understand that trade is a good thing. It can make them money. So they open their borders and begin trading with the free world. And this treaty formed by America is signed in friendship on March 31st, 1854. And Japan is now part of the free world. And now everything you find in America says, made in Japan. Go figure. So we're going to be Japan's friend from here on in. At least until December 7th of 1941. I wonder what's going to happen then. The Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854. In May of this year, a bill is signed between Kansas and Nebraska. This is meant to broaden horizons in America with new facilitating railroads. During this bill, there is also signed into act where each state is free to decide whether slavery should be compromised or not. This is to alleviate tensions in the act of slavery, but instead it intensifies it. Slaves are more rampant in the law in each state now than they have been in the past. The white man has taken over as the ultimate ruler in these areas, at least for the time being. Out of all the stories we have encountered up to date, this is probably the quintessential, most pathetic. The SS Arctic, the ship that could race the Atlantic in 9 days. Fastest ship on record. And on September 27th of 1854, this ship was sailing and collided with another ship. And the ship that it hit sank very quickly. But then the captain of the SS Arctic realized that his ship was sinking as well, and there was nowhere to go. And everyone thought this was the greatest ship in the world, and it turns out where it could sink like any others. So the captain orders the crew to give lifeboats to the men, to the women and children first. But the frightened crewmen, instead of doing what they're supposed to do and living like the human being is supposed to and caring for others, they got on the boats themselves and rescued themselves. And the men were so scared that even the passengers' men got on the boats and saved themselves, leaving the women and the children to die a very slow and painful death. By the time they were picked up, the captain was rescued along with 22 passengers, none of which were men and children. These were considered extreme law breakers. But because of the captain and his demand to get women and children out first, even though it was not heeded, the law decided that these crewmen, though guilty, were not going to serve any time for their murderous acts. On October 21st, 1854, during the bloody and ruthless Crimean War, Florence Nightingale leaves Britain to join the war and offer her health services and care for casualties and those who are injured and dying. She becomes a legend and sets new boundaries and new demands for nursing. And because of her acts of selflessness, nursing takes a turn to where care is the most important thing in the field of nursing. Thanks to this lady here. The Panama Railroad. It's finally open on January 28th, 1855. And now the first railroad car, the train, finally makes its way across the country. And it is successful. Interesting. So from the Atlantic to the Pacific, the train is successful from beginning to end. And now we've got the railroad. Woohoo! This man, Roger Fenton of Britain, he was a photographer when photography was brand new. And he went into the lion's den during the Crimean War. He was the one who infiltrated all angles. He was the first photographer of war. And these are actual photographs from the 1850s when this war was being fought. So after the Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854, we have people just being completely belligerent on whether or not slaves in America should be free. This is where we are getting into a real hard time in America. We've got slave owners who refuse to give up their slaves. They want America to be the slave ownership of the world. Why? Because they see what's coming. They see eventually slaves are going to be freed throughout America, and they don't want it. So people who are against slavery are rising up against them. Now we have a true conflict in America, finally. Isn't that awesome? So from 1855 to 1859, we have what is called Bleeding Kansas, or also known as Bloody Kansas. It is also known as the Border War because it is being fought, truly fought between Kansas and Missouri. And it all has to do with ownership of slaves, or whether all men should be free and not just white men. So this conflict is a bloody war. Now, grant you, there are less than 100 people who are going to perish in this. One of them just happens to be a very, very large reason for the abolitionist movement at this time. His name is John Brown. He is a white man, and he is against slavery, and he speaks out on it. Before the war ends, he is a casualty, and that death was surprising to abolitionists, to the point where we write down words for his death in a song. But this conflict will go on throughout the year of 1859, and will be one of the most quintessential reasons for the opening of a new act in America, and that is the act of flat-out civil war that will be fought throughout the 1860s, which obviously will be the quintessential, most aggressive conflict in America up to date. Just about a year before John Brown's death, political rivals Stephen Douglas and Abraham Lincoln go up against each other in Illinois in a series of 7 debates to try to get them to the U.S. Senate seat. Douglas wins the seat. But the speeches of Abraham Lincoln are so profound, especially that which entails anti-slavery comments. And this is the first time that Abraham Lincoln's name has rose beyond his area of political clout. His name rises above Illinois, and he is known throughout the country. And a good time, I might say, seeing that the pro-slavery people are rampant. This is the time when Abraham Lincoln's name begins to rise to fame. It is just a matter of time before his voice is heard so powerful that the country recognizes him as its ultimate leader. The Son of Gold. What is just as useful, but used differently than gold? Here's a new gold rush. It is called oil. At the end of August of 1859, there is digging going on that reaches close to 70 feet under the ground. This would be an overnight sensation as oil is struck, and the world of industry would be perpetuated from this strike of what will be known as black gold. This is the most powerful discovery up to date. It will rise the industry to machinery, to electric horse buggies, and all of this good stuff that we will use in the future. And it's all starting right here in Pennsylvania. So, before his untimely death by hanging, abolitionist and radical John Brown, he launched a raid against the U.S. Arsenal at Harper's Ferry. This was to stir up anti-slave movement toward the people and get them riled up so that they would fight for their freedom. But it ended in disaster for him when he was captured. This was in October of 1859. It was just 2 months later when this hanging took place. The U.S. government said that he was guilty of treason. So this is when the abolitionists and anti-slave movements rose up to become one voice, and they would not end until slavery ended. And a lot of it was in honor of John Brown's memory. The church bells rang for his death in the north, while rejoicing for his death commenced in the south. It would be short-lived here from here on in, until slavery is eventually abolished in America.
Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His soul is marching on.
On February 27th, 1860, a mere lawyer from Springfield, Illinois, Abraham Lincoln, is invited to New York to give a speech on the question of why enslavement in America is no longer valid. This is the Cooper Union Address. It is a very lengthy speech, very well thought out speech, and it makes total sense in every aspect. It has been worked on very, very diligently, and it gives perfect reason why America should move forward as a free country. Abraham Lincoln becomes famous and infamous from this speech, literally overnight. His name is known throughout the country and is catapulted to instant stardom. He is also greatly inspired to run for president of the United States. And almost instantly, Abraham Lincoln is now a running mate. March 11th, 1860, Abraham Lincoln visits 5 Points, which is literally the most notorious slum in America. This is where the gangs of New York reside. He visits with children in their Sunday school and spend times with their families to give them lives are changed through the inspiration of Abraham. This is recorded in newspapers around the country and adds to Abraham Lincoln's campaign. There's not a whole lot going on with campaigns, whereas everyone else is concerned, which is in his favor. There is no campaign that is greater than his at this point, especially where America is. He is for the slave. He is for the little man. He is for everyone to bring America to the power that it was known for at the beginning, and that is the power of the people, no matter who you may be. And it comes to pass, for the time is here, and the time is now. The time for change is at hand. And on November 6th, 1860, Abraham Lincoln is elected President of the United States of America. Whether you are a slave driver, an abolitionist, a freeman, a slave supporter, no matter who you are and what you may believe, at this moment, America is about to change.